The story of Moses is one of the most captivating tales in religious history. His life was filled with incredible events and divine encounters. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Moses' story is the mystery surrounding his death. Unlike other biblical figures, Moses' final resting place remains unknown to this day. This enigma has puzzled scholars, theologians, and believers for centuries. The Bible provides some details about Moses' last days, yet it leaves us with more questions than answers about his actual burial site. The absence of Moses' body has led to the numerous theories and speculations. Some believe it was a divine act to prevent idol worship. Join me as we unravel the mystery of Moses' missing body, a tale that has fascinated generations. Moses' life was extraordinary from the very beginning. Born to Hebrew slaves in Egypt, he narrowly escaped death as an infant. The Pharaoh had ordered all Hebrew baby boys to be killed, but Moses' mother placed him in a basket on the Nile River. The Pharaoh's daughter found him and raised him as her own. As a young man, Moses witnessed the suffering of his people. He killed an Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew slave. This act forced him to flee Egypt. He lived as a shepherd in Midian for many years. It was during this time that God called him to lead the Israelites out of slavery. Moses returned to Egypt with a divine mission. He confronted Pharaoh, demanding freedom for the Israelites. After a series of plagues, Pharaoh finally relented. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt in what is known as the Exodus. Moses' life was marked by numerous miracles and divine interventions. The most famous miracle associated with Moses is the parting of the Red Sea. This allowed the Israelites to escape the pursuing Egyptian army. During the desert journey, God provided for the Israelites through Moses. When the people were thirsty, Moses struck a rock with his staff and water flowed out. When they were hungry, God sent manna from heaven. These miracles sustained the Israelites throughout their long journey. Another significant miracle was the receiving of the Ten Commandments. Moses ascended Mount Sinai and spoke directly with God. He returned with 2 stone tablets inscribed with God's laws. Each miracle showcased the divine authority behind Moses' mission and leadership. As the Israelites neared the end of their 40-year journey, God instructed Moses to climb Mount Nebo. This mountain is located in modern-day Jordan, east of the Jordan River. It offers a panoramic view of the promised land that the Israelites were about to enter. The ascent to Mount Nebo was Moses' final journey. God had told him that he would not enter the promised land. Instead, he would be allowed to see it from afar. He had led his people through countless challenges, yet he would not join them in their new home. This view from Mount Nebo was God's gift to Moses. It was a moment of closure for the great prophet, marking the end of his earthly journey. Before Moses ascended Mount Nebo, God gave him specific instructions. These final commands were crucial for the transition of leadership to Joshua. God told Moses to encourage and strengthen Joshua. He was to prepare him for the task of leading the Israelites into the Promised Land. Moses also delivered his final speeches to the Israelites. These are recorded in the book of Deuteronomy. He reminded the people of their covenant with God and the laws they were to follow. Moses urged them to remain faithful and obedient in their new land. The Bible doesn't provide many details about Moses' last moments. It simply states that he died there on the mountain. Deuteronomy chapter 34 verse 7 tells us that Moses was 120 years old when he died. God's presence was with Moses in his last moments. One of the most poignant aspects of Moses' story is that he was not allowed to enter the Promised Land. This prohibition was a consequence of an earlier act of disobedience. The incident occurred at a place called Meribah, as recorded in Numbers chapter 20, verses 1 to 13. The Israelites were complaining about the lack of water. God instructed Moses to speak to a rock and water would come out. Instead, Moses struck the rock twice with his staff. While water did come out, Moses had disobeyed God's specific instructions. He had also spoken harshly to the people, showing a lack of faith. As a result of this disobedience, God told Moses that he would not lead the people into the promised land. Despite this punishment, Moses continued to lead the people faithfully. He prepared them for life in the new land and ensured a smooth transition of leadership to Joshua. Moses' acceptance of God's decision shows his humility and obedience. The most intriguing aspect of Moses' death is the mystery surrounding his burial. The Bible states in Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 6, "He buried him in Moab, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, but to this day no one knows where his grave is." This verse raises several questions. Who is he that buried Moses? Why was the location kept secret? The fact that no one knows the location of Moses' grave is unusual. In ancient Near Eastern culture, the graves of important leaders were typically well known and venerated. The absence of Moses' grave site is a striking departure from this norm. Some scholars suggest that God himself buried Moses. This interpretation is based on the ambiguous "he" in the biblical text. The secrecy surrounding Moses' burial place may have been intentional. It could have been a measure to prevent the Israelites from turning his grave into a place of worship. The absence of a grave ensured that the people would focus on God, not on Moses. Over the centuries, many theories have been proposed to explain the mystery of Moses' missing body. Some are rooted in biblical interpretation, while others venture into more speculative territory. One theory suggests that Moses didn't actually die, but was taken up to heaven like Elijah. This idea is based on the unique phrasing in Deuteronomy that Moses died according to the word of the Lord. Some interpret this to mean that Moses experienced a supernatural departure from earth. Another theory proposes that Moses' body was hidden to prevent it from becoming an object of worship. This aligns with the biblical prohibition against idolatry. By keeping Moses' burial place secret, God ensured that the Israelites would not turn it into a shrine. Some speculate that Moses' body was preserved in a special way, perhaps to be revealed in the future. However, this remains a matter of speculation. The primary account of Moses' death is found in Deuteronomy 34. This chapter provides the most detailed information we have about Moses' final days. It describes his ascent of Mount Nebo, the view of the Promised Land, and his death and burial. Deuteronomy, October 12, 34, offers a eulogy for Moses. It states that no prophet has since arisen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. This passage emphasizes Moses' unique relationship with God and his unparalleled role in Israel's history. The New Testament also references Moses' death. In the book of Jude, verse 9 mentions a dispute between the archangel Michael and the devil over Moses' body. This cryptic reference has fueled further speculation about the circumstances of Moses' burial. In Matthew, January 8, 17, Moses appears with Elijah during the transfiguration of Jesus. The mystery of Moses' burial place carries deep significance. It shifts focus from the physical remains of the prophet to his spiritual legacy. By not having a grave to visit, the Israelites were encouraged to remember Moses' teachings rather than venerate his remains. This absence of a grave site also emphasizes the transient nature of human life. Even the greatest of leaders must pass away. What endures is not their physical presence, but the impact of their life and teachings. In Moses' case, his laws and leadership shaped the entire nation of Israel. The unknown grave reinforces the idea that no human, no matter how great, should be the object of worship. This aligns with one of the fundamental principles of monotheism that Moses taught. The focus should always be on God, not on human leaders. The story of Moses, including the mystery of his burial, offers several important lessons. First, it teaches us about leadership and sacrifice. Moses dedicated his life to serving God and leading his people. He faced numerous challenges but remained faithful to his calling. Secondly, Moses' story emphasizes the importance of obedience to God. Despite his greatness, Moses faced consequences for his disobedience. This reminds us that even small acts of disobedience can have significant repercussions. The mystery of Moses' burial teaches us about legacy. What matters most is not where we are buried, but how we lived our lives. Moses is remembered not for his grave, but for his faith, leadership, and the laws he delivered to his people. Finally, Moses' story reminds us of the limits of human greatness.